Hi everyone, today I'm gonna show you how to make this hat, the BUNS hat. Let's get right into it. Okay, so to get started, you're gonna need a crochet hook. So I usually use a US size H, which is a 5mm crochet hook, but if you crochet more loosely, you might want to use a smaller hook, like a G. And if you crochet more tightly, you might want to use a bigger hook, so an I. But yeah, it all depends on what size you need to achieve the gauge, which I'll go into a little more about later. You're also gonna need a pair of scissors, a stitch marker, or a safety pin. I usually just use a safety pin to mark the end of your round. Tapestry needles. I have this little set by Clover. So it has like a big one and a small one. It had a medium, but I lost it. And yeah, you can get like plastic ones or metal ones. I'll link everything in the description box below. And of course, you're going to need some yarn. So I like to use a variety of different weights. So this one I believe is a worsted weight. This one's also a worsted, and this one is a lace weight mohair. So it's pretty different from the other ones. But I like to just sort of have some variation in my texture and in my yarn weight. But yeah, you can pretty much use whatever yarn you want as long as you pay attention to your gauge swatch and your tension. And then this part is optional. It's for the little ear patches in the bunny hat. So you're gonna need a sewing needle, some sewing thread, and a denim scrap. You can use any fabric really. I have just like this extra denim from some old jeans. Alrighty, so let's get started. So I'm gonna take my first yarn, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out with a magic circle. So a magic circle is a really easy way to start crocheting in a round. And so we're basically gonna be crocheting into this little loop around in a spiral, and we're starting from the top of the hat. So we're gonna take our yarn and we're gonna place the tail end in our right hand. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna place the tail end behind the other end. So we're gonna have a loop like this. And we're gonna pull this tail end through the loop. And we're basically making a little knot, but we're not gonna tighten it because we're gonna start crocheting inside of it. So what you wanna do is you wanna take your hook, insert it through the loop. You're gonna pull the yarn over the hook, and you're gonna pull it through the loop, and we're gonna get started doing our stitches. So we'll start with 2 chain stitches, 1, 2, and this is how we're gonna start pretty much every round. And then we're gonna make 8 double crochets inside of this loop. So we'll do our yarn over the hook, we'll pull the hook through the loop, we'll yarn over the hook again, we'll pull it through the loop, we'll yarn over the hook, we'll pull it through the first 2 loops, and then we'll yarn over the hook and pull it through the next 2 loops. And so that's our first double crochet. And so we're gonna make 7 more double crochets for round 1. Remember to crochet over both ends, so over the loop and this tail end, because that's going to help us pull this tail end later on to tighten it so we don't have this big gaping hole. Okay, so we've got 8 double crochets, and we're gonna hold our tail end and we're gonna just pull it tight. And so this pretty much just closes the loop, which is really convenient. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll also take our safety pin and we'll place it through the little V of the last double crochet we did. and that'll just mark the end of our round 1. And so when we go back around to round 2, we'll know that this stitch was the end of round 1, and so we'll know where to place our stitch marker for the next round, and we'll know sort of where the pattern ends, which is good. And so we'll end the round by slip stitching into the first double crochet of the round. Okay, and so we now have 8 stitches, and we're gonna go to round 2. So in round 2, we're gonna start it out by chaining 2. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna double crochet increase into every stitch. So double crochet increase is pretty much just doing 2 double crochets in each of the stitches of the previous round. So at the end of the round, we're gonna have 16 stitches in total. So let's do 1 double crochet into the first stitch, and then a second double crochet into that same stitch. And then we're going to repeat that all around for all 8 stitches. Okay, now we're at the last stitch of round 1, so we'll take the safety pin out. We'll do our last 2 double crochets in that stitch, and we'll place our safety pin into this last stitch. Alrighty, and so let's slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. And let's start round 3. So we're gonna start again with the chain 2. And then what we're gonna do this time is we're gonna double crochet increase, and then we're gonna double crochet. So we'll repeat this pattern all throughout the round. And so what that's gonna look like is in this first stitch, we're gonna do 2 double crochets. And in the next stitch, we are going to do 1 double crochet. And so we're going to repeat that pattern of doing a double crochet increase and then just 1 double crochet all throughout the round. And we'll end up at the end of the round with 24 stitches total. Okay, so we're now at the end of the round. What we're going to do is we will mark the end of our round again, and we'll slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. Okay, and so that is our first 3 rounds. Okay, so now since we're at the end of our 3rd round, we can measure our gauge. So we'll measure the diameter of the piece with the ruler. And so my gauge swatch is about 4 inches. And if your gauge swatch is more than 4 inches or less than 4 inches in diameter, you're gonna want to adjust the hook size or adjust your yarn weight and try again. And since my gauge swatch is accurate, I can just continue going with the headpiece. And so what I'll do is I'll continue to the next rounds. So we can start on round 4 next. Alrighty, let's get started with round 4. So for round 4, we'll start out with 2 chains. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a double crochet increase in the first stitch, and then we'll do 1 double crochet in the next stitch and another double crochet in the stitch after. So we're going to repeat the pattern double crochet increase, double crochet in next 2 stitches all around. So we'll do 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 1 double crochet in the next stitch, and another double crochet in the next stitch. And then we'll start that pattern over again, and we'll just continue all around this circle. Alrighty, so we're at the end of the round, and what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna change my color. Oh, also, yeah, you should have 32 stitches at the end of this round. So what I'm gonna do is, yeah, let me go back. And so there's my 2 double crochets, there's my second to last double crochet, and let me show you how to change color. So if you want to make stripes, which is what I'm gonna do, since I'm at the end of the round, I'm gonna change my color. So this is the last stitch in the round, so I'll take that safety pin out, and I'm gonna start out a double crochet like normal. So I'll yarn over the hook, I'll insert the hook into the stitch, I'll yarn over the hook, pull it through, yarn over the hook, and I'll pull it through the first 2 loops, but I'll stop then. And so now when I'm at this stage, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the yarn. So I'm gonna leave a tail of maybe like 2-ish inches, and I'll take my next yarn. So I'll use this yarn and I'll change it. And so I'll take the end of this new yarn and I'll hold it to the end of the old yarn. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tie the 2 ends together. So I'll hold the 2 together at the same time. And oops, I'm gonna just make a knot. So we'll make just a normal knot. And I'll try to get it closer to where the stitch ends. So I'll pull it, and so I've got a knot like this. I usually like to make a second knot too, just to make sure that it's secure. So I'll make that second knot. Okay, and now with my new yarn, I'm gonna finish this double crochet stitch. So I'll pull the yarn over the hook and I'll pull it through the last 2 loops. And what that does is that keeps the previous yarn to finish the end of the round, and this yarn starts the beginning of the new round. So what I'll now do is I'll place my stitch marker, and we can slip stitch into the first stitch of the round as usual, and we will go on to round 5 with a new color. Okay, I am realizing I did not explain very clearly how to hide the ends when you're color changing. So let me show you. I cut the end of this yarn and I'm gonna change to this new color. So I'm gonna tie the ends like I just showed you. And I'll continue by doing my double crochet here, placing my stitch marker, slip stitching into that first double crochet. It's kind of hard to see because of the mohair, but you get my point. And so how I hide the ends of the yarn is I'll take the tail and I'll just hold it against the piece while I'm crocheting. So I'll start out as normal with my 2 chains. And so I'm gonna do a double crochet, and when I do my double crochet, I'm gonna put my hook through the loop as per usual, and I'm not just gonna leave this tail hanging. I'm gonna hold the tail and I'm gonna pull it over the hook like this. And so I'm just gonna like hold both together and double crochet like this, and I'm gonna keep double crocheting over the end until it's gone. Okay, and so our end is pretty much gone. It's like inside of this row of stitches, so you can't really see it, which is really nice. Okay, so let's move on to round 5. So we'll start again with 2 chains. So 1, 2, and then we're going to do a double crochet increase in the first stitch, and then we'll do double crochet just in the next 3 stitches. So we'll do 1 double crochet in the first stitch, second double crochet in the same stitch, and then we'll do 1 double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3. And so we'll repeat the same pattern all throughout the round. And at the end of the round, we'll have 40 stitches in total. Okay, so we're now at the end of round 5, and again, we will slip stitch into the first stitch, and we can start round 6. So for round 6, we'll chain 2 again, and we're gonna do a double crochet increase, and then 4 double crochets in each of the next 4 stitches. So we'll do 1 double crochet in the first stitch, another double crochet in the same stitch, and then in the next stitch we'll do 1 double crochet, move on to that next stitch, 1 double crochet, move on to the next stitch, 1 double crochet, and then we'll move on to that final stitch, so 1 double crochet. So we've got the double crochet increase, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're gonna repeat this pattern all throughout, and at the end of the round we'll have 48 stitches. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the round. And so again, I'm gonna slip stitch into that first stitch. Oops. And we're pretty much at the end of our increasing. So now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna double crochet all around for rounds 7 through 12. And so we'll do pretty much the same thing. So we'll do chain 1, we'll do chain 2, and then no increasing, just 1 double crochet in each of the stitches. So it'll still be 48 stitches at the end of the round. We're now coming to the end of the headpiece. So I'm gonna do my last double crochet in this stitch. We're at the end of round 12 right now. So I'll do my last double crochet and I'll slip stitch into that first stitch. And now I can cut the end of the yarn and I'll just fasten it off and pull the end through and tighten. And so we've got our completed headpiece. It's about 9 inches wide and 7 inches long. Yours might vary, of course, but this is the complete headpiece. And now we'll move on to the ear flaps next. Okay, so we're gonna make 2 ear flaps. Each ear flap is 10 stitches. So what we're gonna do is we're going to decide where we want the 2 ear flaps to be. So we'll have 1 ear flap on this side, 1 ear flap on that side, and we'll keep the hat sort of folded like this. And what we'll do is we're gonna pick up 10 stitches on one side to start the first ear flap. So let's start on the left side right here. So we've got it folded in half, and a way I like to do it is sort of count 5 from this fold. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll start picking up stitches from here, and so what I'll do is I'll insert my hook into here. And I can sort of open it up now. I'll insert my hook into here. I'll get the yarn that I want to use to make the ear flaps, and I'll just sort of hold it like this, and I'll pull it over my hook, and I'll pull the yarn through. And just to secure it, I like to tie these 2 ends together. So I'll tie this loose end over this end that's attached to the ball, and I'll just make a little knot. And I'll just tighten it. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by chaining 2. So 1, 2, and I'm going to make a double crochet stitch in this same stitch. And then I'm gonna make 9 more double crochets across this edge so that we have a total of 10. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 double crochets now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make 2 chains again, and I'm gonna turn the work, and I'm just gonna double crochet once in each stitch. So I'll do 10 double crochets again, working flat for row 2. and so now I'm gonna make 2 chain stitches, turn the work, and I'm gonna do one more row just like that going this way, and then I'll do 2 chain stitches and I'll do another row. So that would be 4 total rows of just doing 10 double crochets. Okay, so now we can move on to row 5 of the ear flap. So this is where we're gonna start decreasing to get that sort of rounded point at the end. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start out with 2 chain stitches. So 1, 2, and then we're going to do a double crochet decrease. So what you're gonna wanna do is yarn over your hook, push your hook through the first stitch, pull the first loop through, yarn over your hook, push your hook through the next stitch, yarn over the hook again, pull through, and what we'll do is we'll yarn over the hook again and we'll pull it through the first 3 stitches on the hook, and then we've got 3 left, and we'll yarn over the hook and we'll pull it through the next 3 stitches. So that is a double crochet decrease. And so what we'll do is we'll then do 1 double crochet in each of the next 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we've got 2 stitches left, so we're going to do another double crochet decrease at the end. So yarn over the hook, hook through this first stitch, yarn over the hook, pull the loop through, yarn over the hook again, hook through the next stitch, yarn over the hook, pull the yarn through, yarn over the hook, pull the hook through the first 3 stitches, yarn over the hook, pull the loop through the next 3. Alrighty, and so now we have 8 stitches at the end, and so we'll move on to row 6. We're going to do pretty much the same pattern. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1, chain 2, we're going to turn the work, and we'll do a double crochet decrease again at the beginning. And then we're going to double crochet once in each of the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've got 2 stitches left, so we'll do another double crochet decrease. Okay, and so we'll turn the work again, and we'll move on to our final row. So currently we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches. So this final row, row 7, will be our last row, and we'll start out the same as well. So we'll do 1 chain, 2 chains, we'll do a double crochet decrease. And then we'll do 1 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So 1, 2, and then we've just got 2 stitches left, so we're going to do a double crochet decrease in those. Alrighty, and we're done with the first ear flap, so we can cut the yarn. And pull the yarn through the loop to fasten it. And then what we want to do is we want to make the second ear flap pretty much adjacent to the other one. So we want to put the second ear flap right here. And so what we can do is we can sort of fold it in half like this again, and we can look at the fold on this side and do pretty much what we did for the other one. So we'll look up here and we'll count 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we know that this is a good place to start the next ear flap. You can also sort of lay it like this if you want to look at it that way, and you would just want to make sure that the amount of stitches on this side is around even to the amount of stitches on this side. So we'll do the same thing and we'll do another ear flap. Alrighty, and now we're done with the second ear flap, so we'll fasten off. And this is what the piece should look like. So we've got the 2 ear flaps on the side. The ear flaps are about 5-ish inches long and 4 inches wide. I'm gonna show you now how to make the ears. So the bunny ears are worked in the round as a tube. They're worked from the top of the ear to the bottom of the ear, and we'll sort of flatten the ear before we add it to the headpiece to create that sort of rounded 3-dimensional shape. And so what we want to do is we're going to start out with a magic circle. And we'll chain 2. And then we're going to do 8 double crochets inside of the magic circle. Now I'm going to close up the magic circle with the tail end. I'll place my stitch marker on my last stitch, and I'll slip stitch to the first stitch of the round to join. Okay, so we can move on now to round 2. So for round 2, we'll start out with 2 chains as per usual. 1, 2. We'll do another double crochet in that same stitch. And then we're going to double crochet all around. So at the end, we'll just have 8 stitches. I'm at the end of round 2, so I'll slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. And so this is what we have so far. This is going to be the top of the ear, and we're working in the round, so we're working from top to bottom. And for round 3, we'll start out again with 2 chains. 1, 2, and we'll repeat the pattern double crochet increase and then double crocheting once in the next stitch. So we'll do 1 double crochet in this first stitch. We'll do another double crochet in the same stitch. And then in the stitch after that, we're going to double crochet just once. And in the stitch after, we'll do our double crochet increase. In the next one, we'll double crochet once. and we'll repeat this pattern. I'm at the end of round 3. I'll place my stitch marker in the last stitch. I'll slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, and I will have 12 stitches by the end of the round. Now we'll start with round 4. So rounds 4 and 5 are the same. So what we're going to do is we'll chain 2, 1, 2, and we'll just double crochet all around. So at the end of round 4, we'll have 12 stitches, and since we're doing the same thing at the end of round 5, we'll also have 12 stitches. So I'll do rounds 4 and rounds 5 right now. We're now at the end of round 5, so I'll slip stitch to the first stitch, and I'll start on round 6. So round 6 is our final round of the ear. We'll do 1 chain stitch, and then we're going to do, instead of double crochets all around, we're going to do single crochets all around. So we'll be doing 12 single crochets. I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch of the round, and now I'm at the end of my ear, so I'm going to leave a long tail at the end because I want to keep it to sew the ear onto the headpiece later. So I'll leave a long tail, I'll cut the end, and I will fasten off the yarn. And now we have one ear, and as you can see, it's worked in a tube. So these 2 layers all together are going to form the ear, and we'll place it at the top of the headpiece later. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make one more ear. So I've got my 2 ears finished. And now I'm going to show you how to make the little inner ear patches. So I have my scrap of denim. You can use any fabric you want. And also, this is completely optional, so if you don't want to do this, that is totally fine. It is still going to look really cute and adorable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 2 little rectangles on my piece of scrap fabric. Each rectangle is going to be 1 inch by 2.5 inches. Okay, I'm going to cut these rectangles out. And so that I can mimic this rounded shape of the top of both ears, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to round out the top of each of these little rectangles. They should look like this. I've already laid them on top of the crochet ears. And what we're going to do now is take our sewing needle and our sewing thread. I've already threaded my needle. And I'm going to start blanket stitching each of the little denim scraps on top of the crocheted ears. So since the ears are worked as a tube, I'm going to go in from the inside of the ear. And I'm going to insert my needle through both layers. And I'm going to start blanket stitching. So to blanket stitch, I'm going to insert my needle in through both layers again. I'm going to bring the needle back up on just the crochet ear, not through the denim scrap again, and I'm going to insert my needle through this little loop that is formed, and I'll pull my thread, and as you can see, I'm just going through this top layer. I'm not going through the back. And I'm going to keep repeating this all around the ear patch. I've now sewn both of the denim patches onto the ears, and what I'm going to do next is I'll take the tail end on one of my ears, I'll thread it through my tapestry needle, I'll take my ear and I'm going to pinch it in half like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tail to sew through this end, and keeping the end pinched, I'm gonna just secure that. And I'm really only making a couple stitches. You don't need too many. Alrighty, and I'm going to leave the tail on the ear because we still need it to sew the ear onto the headpiece, and I'm going to do the same thing to the other ear. And this is what they both look like. Alrighty, we're almost done. I'm gonna get started now on the trim on the headpiece. So we're gonna create a little trim that goes all around the ear flaps and the bottom of the hat. And so what I'll do is I'll take my trim yarn and I'm gonna turn the headpiece upside down. I'll take my crochet hook and I'll insert it into really any stitch at the bottom of the headpiece. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to bring my yarn through the stitch. I'll tie a little knot to secure it. And I'll start out with 2 chain stitches. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to do a half double crochet in each stitch all the way around. So it's gonna be all the way around the bottom of the headpiece, all the way around the ear flaps, and all the way back to this starting stitch. And when I'm done, I'm going to slip stitch back into this first stitch that I'm making. Here is what the headpiece looks like after half double crocheting all around. And so now I'm going to show you how to make the ties. I can't seem to find any more of the same yarn, but I'm going to use a slightly different one to make the ties. And what I'm going to do is I'll take one of the ear flaps and try to find the center of it. So I would say around here, this stitch is about the center. I'll insert my hook through that stitch in the trim. I'll take my tie yarn, pull it through, make a little knot to secure it, and I'm just going to chain for around 10 inches. And that's about good. So I'll cut my yarn, I'll fasten off the loop, and I'm going to do the same exact thing on the other side. Okay, and here is the hat with the trim and the ties. And so next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna sew the 2 ears on. I'll decide which side wants to be the front and which side wants to be the back. I'll just say that this is the front. I'll take my 2 ears, and using the little tails that I left, I'm going to sew them onto the top of the hat. I usually place them around round 3, so we've got round 1, round 2, and round 3 of the headpiece, so I like to place them around round 3 or round 4. And so what I'll do is I'll just start sewing the ears onto the headpiece. I'll bring the tail inside of the hat and I'll tie a little knot just so that my stitches don't come out. And I'm gonna weave this tail back in through the other side, through the ear, so I can just hide it. And I can cut that end. So there's the hat with the ears on, and the final thing we're gonna do is we'll just search for little loose ends and we'll weave them into the piece. And we're done. So this is the final BUNS hat. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And feel free to check out my pattern as well. I have a PDF pattern of this available. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you like your hats.